about the national female conscription in NS. So I'll ask more direct questions. In 2015, February, there's an article, an opinion piece actually, by one of the most vocal critics of the government, Ho Kwon Pin, who spoke about, who argued for female conscription, and the defense minister Ng Eng Hen at the moment spoke that there would not be reasons for equity. Taking females into NS should not be for reasons of equity. And from what research that I managed to do, there hasn't really been an official statement from the Singapore government about this issue. So just wondering if PME would like to comment about it. I understand that it's a difficult question, so it doesn't have to be commented on. That's the first question. There are many debates about it. So, second question, right? It's about...
Keep it concise, Rachel.
Yeah, ethics and moral values in Singapore society. So this forum is about the preparing for the future economy, but there is growing concern that the world is driven largely by market needs and not human needs. And so I was wondering if the PM feels like there should be more done in Singapore to emphasize on ethical and moral values. I'll just keep it at that question.
Okay, I really don't want to answer your first question. But since you asked me, I would tell you that Ng Eng Hen was expressing our position, which is that you should not call up girls just to make them equal to the boys.
Correct.
We call up the men because we need them for the army. For the women, we have women in the SAF, Air Force, Navy, even fighter pilots, tank commanders. But they are volunteers. I think we should keep it like that. Because if there are very, very few countries in the world which call up women. None of the Europeans, nobody in Asia. There's only one which I know of, and that is Israel. And I think Israel is one of a kind. And even they don't find it so easy to manage national service women. Because you've got to train them, you've got to look after them, you've got to make sure that nothing goes wrong. And we are responsible for them. And I think that it's best we keep the arrangements where they are now. I know this is a controversial answer, even though I'm not saying anything new. But I think...
How about the issue of social imperatives, such as several months during educational transition, what the previous 2 questions ago about, teaching women how to splint and bandage people, because if there's a war, we need nurses, more nurses, first aid.
Well, I can teach people to splint and bandage, but if I'm calling people up for national service and taking 2 years of your life for serious purpose, I think it has to be for something like national defense.
Correct.
Other things I can do, I can arrange program, I can train you, even university, part-time I can do that. But to call you up for 2 years and serve under orders, I think that's a very serious...
Yeah, understood. That was why what Ho Kwon Pin actually recommended was just several months, calling the women up to do vital tasks critical for the well-being of the society, such as caring for our elderly. So a different kind of approach rather than military.
Well, I think we focus on what we need to do. I would not rule out involving women on a voluntary basis, but to call up all of them is a big step.
Right.
On your second question, moral values, ethics, I completely agree with you. We have to be efficient, we have to be competitive, we have to educate people, train them for the marketplace, for jobs. But at the same time, we want them to have values, to be proud of being Singaporean, to know how they should behave as Singaporeans and work with one another and owe obligations to one another. And I hope SIT is doing that.
If the end of the Cold War signaled the beginning of liberal democracy, what are your thoughts on the rise of conservative governments in many parts of the world today, even far-right governments, such as those in France and in Germany. What are your thoughts of that and the implications it has for Singapore moving on to SG 100?
Wow. Okay. First of all, I think the people who thought end of the Cold War means end of history, they were completely wrong. They were euphoric, they thought they had won, and there was nothing more to be solved in human society. The communists had failed, the central planning had failed, liberal democracy, Western style is the answer for every country, and free markets, also extreme Western style, is the solution for every economy. And it turned out not to be so. And there are a lot of troubles in the world which haven't gone away and which we have to live with. If you look at the Middle East, it's a mess. If you look at Europe, they have very difficult problems. And the extreme parties which have emerged, right-wing and left-wing, are a response to these very difficult problems which the political system is unable to solve, which our political leaders cannot persuade their people that we just have to accept it, this is the way the world is. So people lose confidence in a system, they lose confidence in their traditional political leaders and traditional political parties, and they vote for the extreme left, extreme right. So you've got Nick Farage and the National Party in England, you've got AfD in Germany, you've got Le Pen in France. In other countries, you've got left-wing movements, Podemos in Spain. These are not actually groups with solutions. These are groups which are really protesting, just unhappy with the world as it is. I'm letting you know I'm unhappy. Please do something about it. And I think Trump reflects the same sort of mood in America. I mean, he doesn't have, I should speak very carefully. His focus is not to provide an analytical solution to a complicated problem. His focus is to make a simple message which will resonate with the ground who are already very angry and work them up so they vote for him and hopefully he becomes president. But if everybody takes that approach in a democracy, then the president who is elected may or may not have a solution to the problems and may or may not have a mandate in order to do things which are necessary to do. And in Singapore, we watch all this with concern, and we have to ask ourselves, how do we prevent ourselves from going in that direction? 50 years, we have been very lucky. We haven't gone in that direction. We're still united. We're still proud of the country. We're still moving forward. But another 50 years, can you be sure that somewhere along the way on that road, the driver will not fall asleep and you go off the road into trouble? Nobody can be sure. It can happen. And that's one of the reasons why when we talk about the political system in Singapore, you're talking about national education, you're talking about a sense of pride in being Singaporean, but you're also talking about the system, how to make a system where there are some balancing stabilizers so that in case something goes wrong, everything doesn't crash straight away. Like having a president who is elected, so there's a second key on certain decisions, and even if the government turns out to be unwise, the president is there and he can prevent some bad things from happening. So the answer is there's no guarantee, but I think just be aware that the risks are there and you have seen what can go wrong in other countries. Better try our best not to let it go wrong in Singapore. Keep it going right. So thank you very much for asking the question.
Thank you, sir.
A great address and taking us into so many different arenas. I think when I look at the performance, I'm stunned for what's happened over these 20 years. And I look at the transition that's just occurring as you've handed the baton to Lawrence Wong, whom I'm proud to say is another former Mason Fellow, a distinguished graduate of the Kennedy School. And so far, so good. but he performed very well in the previous jobs that he had had an opportunity to either perform in or not so well. And on the basis of his record, we're able to make a transition. So if we imagine, so Dean Weinstein is now having a strategic review here of the school as we think about our next stages in the future. And if you were offering a thought or two about how we would train next generations of leaders who were trying to produce a track record somewhat more like your own. Improvement in citizens' lives, improvement in citizens' incomes, improvement in citizens' safety, improvement in citizens' health, improvements in citizens' feeling about whether the society is going in the right direction or the wrong direction, cohesion, otherwise. So again, this would be a textbook. Maybe you'll write this textbook as your next assignment, but give us some of the headlines.
Well, first, focus on what you have been very good at doing, which is to understand, analyze policy options, policy implications, and ideas to do things better. How can government run better? I think you put a lot of emphasis on that. And I have found what I learned in the Kennedy School in those areas very valuable to me. I think beyond that, it would be very useful to have an understanding of how organizations work, how you can fit into a big organization, and how you can actually translate idealism and energy and ideas.
Ask me anything! Hi, I'm Lieutenant Praveen, 066 Company, BMTC School 4.
And I'm Second Sergeant Darren.
066 Company, BMTC School 4.
And I'm Second Sergeant Darren, Platoon Sergeant of 6 Koi School 4.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how strict are you guys?
I think it's a 6, what do you think?
Honestly, for me, I think it's a 6 as well. We are here to educate you guys, not to scold you guys. Discipline is still part of our core values.
How to season a parade?
For this, you can check out our Singapore Army's TikTok. That's